Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janae Burr. I'm going to be doing the last session that you have today for our first annual OCDD Summit. Oh, it's going to be hard for me to stay behind the podium because I tend to move, so I'm going to try to stay right here. I'm going to let all of you know today that I know you've gone to a lot of sessions today, and there have been a lot of panels. Well, I don't have a panel today. So what I'm going to do is open this up where it can be an open discussion. As I'm going through slides, I'm going to reach out if you have questions or comments. I really would like that feedback today, just so that we're all on the same page. As we get started, I also want you to stop and think of your own life. When I started with this, my own world, I'm thinking of my own world as well. What are the things that are important to me for my own life? So as we're going through some of those slides today, I want you to think about your own life. I was trying to do an exercise for one of my staff, and she was like, how could I get them to understand what we do in building support plans? And I said, let them talk about themselves. The first way is to write it about yourself. Like, take it personally and think, hey, this is what's important to me. Here's all the relationships, all the things that I'm going to talk about in the slide deck today. I want you to really think about that for your own personal life. Just a little background on me. I have well over 26 years in this field. I have been a support coordinator. I've actually been a direct support professional before moving to Baton Rouge. I've worked in the local governing entity as a medical certification specialist. I've also worked in the role of support coordination statewide within OCDD state office. And now I'm a program manager working with support coordination, provider relations, the supports waiver, and the request for services registry and screening teams. So I have a vast number of groups that are under me, and I'm also very familiar with all of our 1915C waivers for OCDD, which if you haven't heard, as Children's Choice, Supports Waiver, Residential Options Waiver, and the New Opportunities Waiver. So again, I look forward to presenting to you today, and I look forward to hearing from you today, because it's very important that I actually get that feedback. I may not have a panel, but each and every one of you is very important to me, and you have a very important voice. Everybody has a history. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room. You have a reason for being here, and so I want to make sure that we take advantage of that today during this session. So again, thank you so much for choosing to select to this actual session. Now I'm having vision problems, so I'm gonna have to drop my glasses on, and so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So, as I mentioned, what are your personal experiences? Well, for me, I have to think, what is important to me? Where did it come from? What shaped our beliefs? Where did all of that start? Many people have different experiences. If they viewed someone with the intellectual developmental disability, what were your first thoughts when you saw that person? I know for me, it goes back to my childhood. Having a close relative with a developmental disability at the age of 8, how did that shape my life? Well, that's why I'm here today. Understanding that that person had things that they enjoyed doing, and they actually came up to me when I was 8, and they were like, why are you trying to embarrass me by not riding your bicycle like everybody else? And I was like, well, excuse me. He was like, you need to know that these are my friends, and I need you to accept that these are all my friends, and you need to accept that. So right then I said, oh wait, I'm not gonna look at you any different, because you're saying to me, I'm embarrassing you. So I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to grow in life, to know that there's individuals that like certain things that shapes their lives. Our beliefs shape where we are today in all the people that we support, whether it's in a role of a support coordinator, if you're an advocate, if you're a provider, if you're a support coordinator. Everybody has a role in how they are here at this point. So, building the best life, a work in progress. So what do we all start with? What's the vision? What is a good life? What do you consider to be a good life? You need to build on those strengths. If it's something that you enjoy, and I know that you've heard because I've listened to a lot of sessions today, what are some things that people like to do? What are those strengths? Some people may have a great creative spirit, so they may want to choose things that give them that creative background. Some people may have an animal, they love animals, so they may want to choose to do things that are involving going to the zoo or doing things at an animal shelter, but that's something that they want and they have a strength or a love for that. There's always opportunities to learn new things. We also have to find the right kind of supports, whether that's paid supports, natural supports. Where do those supports come from? It's not always paid supports. You could have a church family. You could have joined some type of activity or recreation. Those are all types of supports to consider. And then, are you checking in and making any of those necessary changes that you need to, based on starting with that vision and goal? You're having a continuum. It's going back through those things. It's not always the same thing. As we all know, we don't always have the same goal. Those goals can change by year. Things can happen. So you have to know that you just start back with that continuum into that circle. Can any of y'all think of, hey, some things that you've thought about as a goal, and then you started going through those strengths and things like that? Anybody have an example? Like I said, this is an open one, an open forum for you to engage with me today. So if you have anything, we still have a few to go through, but if you start thinking about that, start thinking about yourself. I really want you to think about that and anybody you may support. Like, is there any goal, like a vision or goal, something that you can see personally that that maybe you're starting to think through and how you had to build through that? And then there's sometimes those goals start over. They may stop midstream because something may have occurred. So you have to keep that in mind, that you can't always stick with every goal, but you can start with a good plan and build on that continuum. So who do you support? That's why I just mentioned all the people in this room. Did somebody ask a question? Okay. So understanding intellectual versus developmental disability. That's important. Intellectual is actually part of a developmental disability. The type and severity, it depends on the individual. What was important as a takeaway for me was that 85% of people with intellectual disabilities have one mild deficit. We have 15% of people with intellectual disabilities that may have moderate to profound. Roughly doing the numbers, that's about 2.5 million people. We're talking about numbers in Louisiana that may have some of those services. We have a very small percentage that are probably getting those behavioral or medical complex. There are a lot of people that are still falling in that 85% range. And this is just some data that we've had. Like, some people are going to the community. People have lives where they're going to school. They have those things. They're getting jobs. They have social lives. They're going to bowling. They're doing all of those things. But that doesn't mean any of those people with that 15% that you don't need to look at those individuals on what's important to their lives. And they have families. They have supporters around them that understand what's important to them as well. You want to look at all individuals as we're going through this. But it's what's the support and not looking at labels, looking at the individual. Any questions or comments right here? Okay. Supporting that person to get a life. How do you support them? Belong to his or her community. Like, there are a variety of personal relationships that people can have. There's also opportunities to advocate. A lot of you are probably advocates. On any given day, many of us advocate when we don't even know we're advocating. If there's somebody in the store that I see that somebody's taking advantage of, I'll try to advocate for them right there on the spot. So I can understand that passion for that. Valued roles within your family and your community. Support to make major lifestyle changes. Many of us have to make major lifestyle changes. I, for one, am going to use an example out of my life. Well, I have diabetes, so I have to make sure that I eat the right things. Otherwise, I'm going to have some serious medical concerns. I have a slide a little bit later about what those important for, but it's very important that I have a healthy lifestyle. I wouldn't want somebody to constantly tell me, you can't eat this, you can't eat this. It's all in how you communicate that to me. Maybe you say, how about you try these sugar-free cookies? Instead of getting a whole birthday cake and trying to eat it, I look for other options and have those discussions with my doctors. Friends that support you, not kind of just come down on you really hard. You have to have that good relationship and build that good relationship. Otherwise, you're going to have people just shut down on you. And that can be the same for me. I'll just shut down. But having that support to offer other alternatives that make it for the best healthy life that you can have. And also expressing yourself, your own personal identity, who you are every day, who you are to your family, who you are to your friends, who you are just in general. Okay, also, make sure you're supporting. Supporting is extremely important. All of us want some type of support when we're doing things. We may say we like to be by ourselves, but at some point when things happen, we stop and think, who can support us? Who's there for us? Who's helping us to live the best life that we can? And it's not always where you're thinking, oh, here comes my parent to tell me this or tell me that. But are they looking out for your best interest? Sometimes it can feel like it's overbearing, but also you have to sometimes stop and think, what's the best way to make someone feel like they have a voice? A lot of times when you go into a home as a support coordinator, some ways I used to go into the home, it wasn't a matter of me picking up the paper and just putting the paper out. There were times when I would say, hey, tell me what's going on. Let me find out, what have you been doing? What's been of great interest to you? Like really having those in-depth, person-centered conversations. If they're like, oh, I went to the zoo. Well, tell me what happened at the zoo. Opening that dialogue has allowed me to be able to write support plans very easily. It makes me able to communicate with providers. If there was something going on in the home, I was able to take that back. If the provider wasn't there, instances back then the provider was there, and if they weren't, we did follow-up meetings with the providers so that we could all be on the same page to better support that individual living in the community. And that includes going to the school. If there were things that were happening at the school, you just have to have a relationship and not leave the person out. Putting that person, there's been circles that have drawn and you put the person in the middle, but that's who we're all there for. We're there to support those individuals. So you want to make sure that you maintain the connection. Anything that's happened in the past. Make sure that it's safe and there's an opportunity for physical wellness. You want people to make sure that they can live and die with dignity. So that's really important as far as supporting that person to get that life that they deserve. Yes?
Mama, do you want to tell everybody about how she's supported?
Yes.
Her most beautiful statement to us all the time is, I love my life. I love my life.
Hello? Okay.
Oh, thank you. Hey, my name, I got my tag. My name is Katie Westerfield. My own Fisher House. I'm in high school. I got favorite 204.
Tell us about your day.
My day for a week. I got it going for a week for me. And I got 2 caregivers for night. I got Sassy and Teresa.
And what do you do during the day?
My day, I have fun parties.
Okay.
And I have fun at Fisher House.
And where do you go to run your errands?
I got errands one. I got mail, bank, and soccer ball.
Recycle. All right.
Yeah.
And in the evening,
In the work, I got Saki and Teresa.
and what do you do with them? Where do you live?
I want to live at Suthermore right now.
With me?
I got a parent, it's Lisa LeBron. My daddy, Westerfield. No. I got my own place. I got my dad built for me a new permit for me.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Father car, came my kitchen and a bathroom.
And you sanitize because of COVID.
Yeah, I'm gonna get COVID out. So I got a friend. It's Darwin. I got KCL is my friend, and Pinot Green is my friend.
And which other on Wednesday?
Okay, Wednesday we go get ready for Mother God. Carry sticks.
On spirit sticks.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, what do you and Wendy and Sierra with y'all case workers, what do y'all do
Okay, I'm gonna do a lunch
at your apartment?
in my apartment.
And y'all play a game.
I play a game
And y'all miss every week,
and then all week.
except for Miss Meister.
You know what I said.
Okay, well, tell Miss Janae, thank you.
Oh, and please to pay my for the cake. Cake got sick last week, on hospital last week.
So thank you, Katie.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, and tuition, my tuition should be second liver.
Okay, give them back the microphone.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So going on to the next slide, and that's Katie. I want to make sure. Katie? Okay. I got to block that in. Got it. Supporting the person. We talk about school, work, learning, independence. That's important. Family, friends, community connections, a sense of belonging. Healthy lifestyle, wellness, positive health, physical well-being, a sense of self-identity, driving a plan and supports, and be understood. I'm not too familiar before today. I attended the session before with Ms. Rosemary Morales, and I learned about the program that they have, and it was quite interesting to me, so I'm gonna have to look into that, but it was really good to hear, and good to hear Katie talk about it today. So that gives us an opportunity to look at those things that are important to people, what people like to do, how they have those routines that they enjoy, and why they enjoy it, and their staff. So that was really good. Thank you so much. Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move around with this. Thank you, Christy.
I just wanted to emphasize.
You might have to push the button up there.
That's it?
Is that,
Yeah, good. Okay. Now, I just want to emphasize something you said earlier, which meant a lot to me when you said, when I started doing this, I looked at my life. Because I think that's extremely helpful for a lot of us to say, and when we learn about person-centered approaches, we think about supporting that person to have a life at least as good as any valued citizen. And, you know, we're one valued citizen that we might look at. And I think for us, as providers and frontline staff, it helps us to stay from the othering perspective. It's one of the things we fight back against in person-centered approaches is the othering, well, we want a job, but they, and if you hear people often use they, that's othering, y'all. And be careful, you know, so that there's certain cues to help us be careful if we're kind of veering off track. That a life at least as good as a typical valued citizen. Okay, are we doing that? And the other thing that you mentioned, or I wanted to mention before you went much further, was that on your very first slide, you said person-centered approaches. I was glad to see that, because as a service provider, as a person who works with other providers as well, what we ask is, look at all the things you do, from hiring to training to meetings, everything that you do that encompasses your approach to providing services, and are all those systems done in a person-centered way? And that's why we talk about person-centered approaches, because it encompasses everything we do, or at least it should. That's what we're shooting for. So sometimes when we're doing, an interview, an employment interview, so how do you make an employment interview consistent with person-centered approaches? Well, one thing is you ask the person if they ever heard of it.
True.
But then there are some other things as well. But being mindful of, I am hiring someone to work in a person-centered organization. How do I determine if that person is a good fit? Not just, but the person is part of it, but also for a person-centered organization. So when you say person-centered approaches, that's a big circle there, and I was glad to see you say that.
That was actually like the next slide was talking about that. So you're right on the practice, but the approach is important. People think about what is person-centered as far as establishing the means for the person to live, and then they talk about person-centered planning, like I mentioned, where you're developing that support plan. But then the practice is actually that alignment. So having that one big title about the approach is how you take that thinking, that planning, and that practice all together to make it fit for the individual. And that's for any individual. That's for any life. That's why I use my personal life. I don't typically do that, but it makes sense. If I'm going to dive into somebody else's life, then I need to take a look at my own personal life as well and what is important to me. And so we need to take a look at that approach to make sure that aligns for individuals to live the best life possible. So thank you. We have like a website that I think we're going to share the slide deck later for you to be able to click on some of this information. I know it's being recorded today, but some of this information will have it where it's a hyperlink for people to be able to click on it and look at those Medicaid home and community-based services. So learning each person's story. We've kind of talked about this on previous slides about the vision and the goals, what preferences people have. A preference could be that, hey, I prefer to eat at this donut shop versus that donut shop. So if you bring me donuts from that shop, then I'm probably going to be like, that's not my preference. I really don't. And this is a very small preference that I used in this example. But just take a look at that. Looking for the strengths. When I did that continuum earlier, and I was talking about some of those strengths and going around and you make a full circle on that continuum, look for those opportunities. Look for connections. Environmental things that are positive. Look for those things when you're trying to think of that learning each person's story. Also, behavioral comes into play when there's challenges out there. It could be legal, it could be medical, skills, challenges, and environmental negatives. I will say learning each person's story, and since Christy's in the room, and Christy and I have known each other a little bit over 25 plus years, we actually went to a home visit a couple of years ago, and we were at the home, and the individual was like in the other room. And so we were like, well, what's going on here? And the support coordinator was there, and somebody from the LGE was there. And so we just started looking around, and we were like, it looks like they have a lot of hunting pictures and things like that. So they were like, oh, yes, I'm going to say D or Debbie. Debbie enjoys that. And I'm like, well, where's Debbie? And they were like, well, Debbie's in the other room. So I was like, well, maybe we should ask Debbie. So we got up from the table, we went in another room, we were like, Debbie, tell us about this. And she was like, oh, let me tell you. And she just started talking. And it was just an observation around the house, bringing her in. She started talking about her dog. She started talking about a lot of things, but then we were able to then come back to the table. And you know what now? She's engaged. We have found something that she enjoys. So even if we're going to make and have a difficult, challenging, difficult conversation, we're able to still tap into those things that are important to her. Like, she really enjoyed that, but we had to do an observation of what was going on. We can't always just go in with the paper, and I say that a lot, because having the paper, sometimes you got to slide it to the side and have those conversations. So that was just a point. Christy, I dropped you in there for that. So, life vision. What is the big picture? Where are we going with the big picture? What I want my life to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. I think that was up earlier as a panel question. The next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to be? If you're in high school, do you want to pursue going to college, not going to college? Hey, I want to go get a job. What is the next 3 to 5 years, and how can you build on getting to those next 3 to 5 years? If there's something you need to do, what are you planning to do to get that fully executed? Also, that includes home life. We say a lot of times, where do you want to live? Some people are like, I want to continue to live at home right now because I want to get a job, save some money. Those are things to talk about. Are you getting a job? How much do you want to save? Where do you want to live? What kind of place do you want to live in? Do you want to live in an apartment? Do you want to live in a house? Do you want close neighbors? Do you want an area where you can have activities to go to? Those are some ways to probe those conversations on somebody saying, hey, I want to live in the community, getting to those specifics. That does not include, I want to keep going to the day program. I want to keep living here. Even if you say that, please get more to that. That's not a good lead-in. That's closed off, and you really need to explore that. I want to keep my behavioral plan. Do any of us want to say that about ourselves? I don't think so. So that's not something that we need to have as part of a conversation or put it anywhere as any vision or goals. And I want to make sure my one-on-one staff so I won't have behaviors. Not another thing. Could anybody give me an example what would be a good thing to say for that instead of saying that? Anybody? Yes.
I want to keep my one-on-one staff down.
Mm-hmm.
So probably I would want to know, what supports do you need after you've already said you want to build stronger relationships? So I would want to know, what supports do you need to do that? Or you want to look for a job. So I would say, what supports do you need to do that? So the number of, whether it's a one-on-one staff or whatever it is, would grow out of the support that's needed. And I don't know if this means I want a particular person, but it could. It could mean when it says I want the one-on-one staff that I have, it could mean I want to keep on with this person. So I would say, oh, that's cool, that's nice. What is it about her that you like? Mm-hmm. What does that person do? You know, what is it? So that way, if God forbid the person decides to not be there, mm-hmm. we can be have a sense of, well, we need to be looking for a person who's similar in this, and this way. So depending on what the person means, but that's what I would go with.
Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of that with staffing and things like that, but thank you for bringing up that point as well. So thank you. So life vision, is there, okay.
Well, the one-on-one could also mean that if they have a roommate, that they want to do stuff aside from their roommate, so they want one-on-one staff so they can do more stuff that they would like to do as an individual, not together in a group or with their roommates.
Okay.
So maybe they would say that I like to have one-on-one support to be able to do more of the things that I like to do.
Okay. And also having that staff that also you're not getting somebody who's a staff who's indoors and you love to go outdoors. That's just going to make it difficult. They'll try to keep you in, but you want somebody who says, yes, let's go outdoors, or I like to go to concerts, and your staff is able to support you with those things. So thank you for bringing that up as well. So passing the test. I want to maintain my health. Is that passing the test? Do y'all think that's passing the test? Yes, for does it pass the test, and looking at the future, a statement, something we would say about you or me, not something that we say only about people with disabilities. So I want to maintain my health. It could pass the test as far as I keep going on. I want to maintain my health. So I am going to make sure that I look at what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, and I tend to take my medications as needed and things like that. So it could pass the test if we add a little bit more on to that statement.
You say, I want to maintain optimum health.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm. Yes. And also, I need services to have around-the-clock supervision. That's not going to pass the test. You could have a different way and a different approach to saying that as well. I have supports in place for things I like to enjoy doing during the day and also during the night because I like to stay up at night and things like that, or I like to go out to clubs or things like that. But just making that statement like that is not person-centered. I want to become more independent. I kind of talked through that one a little bit about how you could build that if you're planning to live on your own and having those conversations about where you would like to live. If you're not working, how do you plan to pay for your living and all the bills that come with that? So, and then I want a provider to help me manage my finances. Anybody think of a way you could say that to pass the test? You can go. You need a microphone? Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Again, I want you to be free to talk and have perspectives from others. So I appreciate everybody that's giving feedback today and all of you that are engaged in our conversation today on person-centered. Go ahead.
Maybe I would say I would like to save up for a vacation and I need my provider to help me with the savings plan.
Okay. That's a good one. If they want to go on a cruise, you have to start saving at some point or things like that. Or I just want to go to Texas because I want to go visit something in Texas. So that's a very good example. Like me just standing here saying examples, many of you have those thoughts every day of what those things could be for individuals that you support and or your personal life as well. Go ahead. Do you need a microphone?
I don't think so. Can everybody hear me? So I have a 16-year-old who wants to be a zoologist who's got autism. And so this summer, I'm thinking about getting him to volunteer at the zoo, but I'm also encouraging him, like he didn't want to do science and Spanish, but I'm like, if you're going to travel the world or you're going to travel and study animals, you really need to be good at this because in other countries and some other places, a lot of them speak Spanish. So he's in Spanish too now. He makes straight A's and B's on his own. And even in science and biology as well. So he wants to be a zoologist. I'm not quite sure what our future looks like from here, but he's got 2.5 years left at school. And I'm already starting to contemplate, okay, what are we going to do? Because I would like to move out of the state, but I have to take into consideration his future. And then I got a 7-year-old. We got time for that one. He's got Down syndrome, but my oldest one, I'm starting to already think about his future and make his future a lot more successful than the opportunities that I had in my life. Okay. So I don't know where to go from there, but that's what I'm working on now is some of these. What is next? How do I build his future for him and help him? I don't think he's going to be able to live independently for a long time, but the goal is there. One day. He's too tall to let him move out right now.
But it's a vision and putting some of those things in place to get to that vision. Yep. So I can appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so we've pretty much checked our understanding. What I want you to do is not so much write it down or anything like that, but like take it away. When you're able to see the slide deck, kind of think of what we talked about today. And maybe there's some things we didn't go over, but allow that to be an opportunity, even if you want to come back to it later and say, hey, this is something else we could explore based on some of those beginning conversations. So just make sure you have that opportunity if you'd like to do that. So what are life goals? What is actually personally meaningful to you? Something that can be measured, see if progress is made. If you're trying to explore starting to driving school, did you get the book to start studying? Like there's some things and steps you have to take for certain things. It never includes things like, I want to keep my job, I want to maintain my health unless you have more to go from. I want to keep my job only if it's something that's extremely important that you need to keep your job, then you can expand on that. But just stopping it there, sometimes you have to continue to expand on that. You may want to keep your job because you have a lot of bills to pay and things like that, and you want to continue to live in the community and also access a lot of activities that may cost money in the community. Oh, bless you. And never includes, I need a new wheelchair to get around safely. Does that make sense to y'all? Y'all. I'm saying y'all, you all, I'm saying y'all, I'm saying it all today. Okay. So that is not, I want to keep seeing my doctors. I don't think it's many people that just run out and say, let me go to the doctor. I love to go see my doctor. But if you want that optimum health, there are some things that you need to do. For me, I have these glasses, so obviously I have to go to the eye doctor from time to time, but that's something so I can see. But it's all in how you phrase it. It's all about having person-centered and not just also putting what I started with one of the slides, your beliefs on other people. It has to be what they believe. You can't say, well, I think it should be this way, so I know that's how you want it for your life. That's not how you have those conversations.
Sometimes, I know for us, it takes a couple of follow-up questions to determine, okay, is this something the person's hearing from somewhere else? Or is this something the person is telling me that they think I want to hear? You know, so if, let's say, I want to keep my doctor. Maybe you're thinking, I want you to keep your doctor or something like that. So I was like, well, what is it about Dr. John that you like? Well, I never have to wait, and they always ask me how's my day. Okay, you're giving me a reason. Or they live the office is pretty close to my house, or whatever the reason is. But asking those follow-up questions to get a sense of, is this person answering me just to get me out of their house? You know?
True.
Sometimes that happens. Or is this really going a little deeper to say, yes, Dr. Jones is important to me because of boom, boom, boom.
And it could be that the doctor is giving you wanted to lose so much weight, and the doctor is giving you some type of exercise regimen that has actually worked for you. So you enjoy going to the doctor because the doctor has been open to listening to you to figure out what works best for you. So that may be another reason why, or the doctor said, if you do this, you won't have to take so many medications. So it's all in how that doctor may talk to you and have that person-centered conversation as well. So good point as well. So we're doing another pass the test. I want rehabilitation services. To all of you, should this pass as personally meaningful? Should it pass the like you and me? That first one. Anybody, you can just say yes or no. No. I want to become more independent and have my own living environment. Is that a yes or a no? Yes.
And I think you're probably would any of us say that about ourselves? Would we say we want our own, we want to be more independent and live in our own environment? No, we say I want to stay in my house in Burrville, and this is what the house looks like. So when we say like you and me, it's really about the framing. And I'll say this, and I think it builds on what you were saying, Jackie. I feel like people have lost the ability or the art of having a conversation. And so person-centeredness is sort of the thinking, the approach, the practice. It really comes back to how we have that conversation with people. So when it's the like you or me test, or is it something we would say about ourselves, our loved ones? If not, we may want to reframe it.
Right. I mean, sometimes in training we'll say, you know, it's a kitchen table discussion. Is this the way? I got a grandson that just went off to college. Was this a conversation? Would be he would say, I want to live independently in my own environment. No. He was like, Mimi, I want to live such and such a place. You know. So the everyday language and the kitchen table language is sort of a little clue to us when we're getting ready to have those conversations to say, how do I take this from, you know, some sort of professional language or whatever, to an everyday language that's going to get to the heart of supporting this person to have a life as meaningful and interesting as they want to have to the best of our ability. And that term independent, I know when people say independent, I know what they mean, but I think that can be misleading, particularly if you're talking to a team of folks who may not understand the nuances of what you're talking about, because none of us live independently. Nobody I met yet. Amen. I ain't met nobody yet who live independent. We live interdependently. We all lean on somebody some days. Might lean on somebody else some other days. But we are interdependent. And that goes to your previous statements about having relationships, having people you can lean on. Maybe you don't want to tell mama certain things. Maybe you want, you're having a circle of support. That's what interdependence looks like. And so I would like to see us use that term a little more often. Okay. I know when we say independent, we mean, you are making the decisions and the choices. That's really what we mean. But it could be misconstrued.
Okay, thank you.
You want it? No.
You might need it here. So also great points that both Christy and Miss Jackie have made. Those are not statements that you or I would say about yourselves, the you and me. So thank you for bringing that context. It's not something I would say, I would like to have access to my belongings. No, that's anything that we've talked about with settings and anything else, that's not something that we would say. That's not the you and me. That's not what I would say about myself. I really appreciate the kitchen table because that's a conversation that many of us may have that is not the same. It's not the same as standing up here versus having those people around us that support us. Sometimes they don't always agree with you, but they still support you, and they can give you good ideas and thoughts of things that you brought to their attention. Okay. So I think we've talked about that. So, vision and life goals. I've talked about this a little bit previously, so I guess I was thinking ahead of all my slides, I guess today we'll say that, about volunteering at a local animal shelter and things like that. Different kinds of cats and dogs, meeting people, all of those goals that you want as a vision 1 or a vision 2, and breaking it all down specifically to how you want to do that, if you want to work with animals, if that's something you want to do. If you have family members that come up to you and say, I would like to be an astronaut, or I'd like to do piloting, what are those steps that you're setting up to assist that person or support them in that vision? Some things may work for them. If you say, that was a good example earlier about classes you have to take if you want to get to a desired outcome. So this is just the vision and some life goals on this, as all of us could think about things and how we would break those down separately. Gathering information, those important relationships and those connections. Balancing important to and important for. My routines and non-negotiables, understanding my communication style, and finding the right fit when I need support staff. What we have looked at is some person-centered tools, some things, and here are some of the names that we've labeled some of them, to help support coordinators to start having those conversations so they can build those support plans. So it is important. We used to call it a couple of other things where you may have heard of relationship maps and things like that, but find it out starting with first one with their relationships. So we'll talk about that and how you have defined different relationships. We'll also talk about those things that are important to, important for, things I've used as personal examples today. My routines and non-negotiables, like what is your routine? We'll have a slide about that. For me, my routine is I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. That's to get my day started.
I don't have to be at work till 8 o'clock, but I get up at 4:30. And I have a very scheduled routine of things I have to do to make it to work by 8 o'clock. But if you disturb me and set me off to 6, then that throws my whole day off. Like, it's just not going to work for me. However, getting up that early means I'm not up till 10 o'clock at night. I'm asleep by 8 p.m. typically. So if you put me at somewhere I have to be in the evening, then I have to adjust because I like to get up early in the morning. Does that mean I like to have coffee? A lot of people like to have coffee. They are not going to make it through the morning if they don't have some coffee, or in the afternoon. That works for me sometimes, but that's not my routine. Having a drink of some water, I have those little diet drinks, I have to have those in the morning. Like, I'm not going to make it through the morning if I don't have one. So those are things. What are those non-negotiables? What are things that you're not going to settle for? Like, these are things in your life we're going to talk about in an upcoming slide. And then communication style. One important thing that's on one of the slides is, how are we communicating? How are individuals communicating with us? And are we actively listening to those individuals? And that means setting aside everything and understanding what they're trying to communicate to us. And people can communicate a multitude of different ways. And then finding the right fit. And that's where we're going to really talk about, we used to talk about staff matching, but right fit for staff. If you're an outdoors person, an indoors person, you don't say, I want a staff that makes sure that they're nice to me. That's not something I would say. That's an expectation that all of us, you and me, should expect that somebody would be nice. Those are not things that we should have as finding the right fit. So those important relationships, you'll think about, well, you know what, Ms. Jack?
When you talk about getting to know the person, one of the things that I found helpful in getting to know the person over, it's been very important to us over time, is to listen to that person's story in their words, and learn so much that would have been missed if you had to say, and we tell the person right up, look, if there's something in the story that you don't want to share today, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in the story that you're not comfortable with, sometimes people have, they don't want to share with people, but getting to know a person's story will help you to know how to negotiate some of the rest of the questions sometimes. Like, well, I was always taken advantage of in 3rd grade. Okay. Or I used to love to play outside, and whatever. So knowing that person's story in their own words, I find very helpful, and something that we may not discuss it every time, but every now and then to go back to that story to say, I learned that somebody had an aunt in another state that was nowhere in the record, but she talked about Aunt June. And when we did a little investigating, there was Aunt June.
Oh,
She
okay.
learned to connect with, so this is
Okay.
the story.
Okay, thank you. And so those important relationships, like if all of you think about who are those close family and friends, you start with that first box. Those are the people that are really important and close-knit. That may be some relatives that are really close to you. And then also you can break it down on what do they do to support me? How do they support me? Community connections can include like church members, work. Some people have work relationships that they have, and then they consider them acquaintances. And what are those supports for you to continue to participate? And then those important paid supports. A lot of people will add their support staff that they've grown to have a relationship with. That's also something, if something changes and that support staff, paid staff is no longer there, you typically have to have some type of backup plan to figure out who's the best person to support this individual. Because a lot of people have grown to really have close relationships with those supporters. That a lot of times you'll see where people will add their doctors or dentists or other people that are also paid supports, but they're all included in here. And what is it that they do for me? Can anybody think of any examples of any of these that you'd like to share? Anybody? How about a close family and friend? You don't have to give the real name, but anybody have an example? Yes. Friends? Okay.
But like her community connections would be the mailman. She made a real good relationship with him at the post office.
Okay.
And she colors pictures, she makes him cards and that kind of stuff. So he puts that on the bulletin board so everybody in the post office knows who Katie is. But then, you know, her workers develop relationships with her so that she gets to know their families and if there's a new grandbaby or that kind of stuff. So she is intermingled into the supports family. And I think that's very important. I know most of y'all are agency providers, but you know, when we allow somebody to come into our home, they're not only learning our home and our family, but we're learning theirs. So that's real important because we're allowing, you know, maybe a stranger to come into our environment, and we really need to vet people and know, you know, they might be coming from an agency, but we just need to know who, they are. I have interviewed many ladies that came from agencies before we went to self-direction. And I mean, one lady, I asked about her husband. Was she married? And she said, well, he's in jail. Well, that struck me. Maybe she hadn't told that to her supervisor. But I couldn't hire that lady because I didn't want her husband or whoever to, you know where I lived or anything like that. That just seemed like that was just a thing. Now, we also had an agency sent us an emergency person at one time, and my husband was home, and because she had a lot of tattoos and piercings, he told her he didn't need her. Well, you know, that makes an effect on families. So as a family, you really have to be careful with who you leave your loved ones with. So I just wanted to say that because I know as a provider agency, you are trying to do the best fit, but you know, sometimes you send people to other people and you just don't know if that's going to be a good fit. So I just wanted to share that.
Maybe for weekend we're going there to adopt you for weekend.
Oh, she's going to dance at the VFW. There's a dance in Gonzales.
Thank you. Sounds great. Okay, so here were just some examples, but we've kind of talked through that. I gave some earlier about who may be important people in your lives, so you just take a look at that one and relationships, spotting the differences, as you can see right here, how detailed on one side, and then you notice that Susie has no connections and acquaintances. So that's really, it's not matching up when you look over here as you're trying to build who all those important people are and those connections. So even for the example that we just had about the mailman, well then that's falling in a connection. Somebody they felt like that's an important person, well Katie has felt, I'm gonna call Katie today, that's important to her, having that relationship. So just wanted to add that one. So as I mentioned at the beginning, think about for yourself, who would be those relationships? Are you more so on this side, or are you over here like Susie? You want to make sure that people understand, and you probably have built yourself to be more inclined to all of these people may be connections for you. I know if I had to build it for myself, I would have a lot of connections, which includes people I work with that I've formed relationships with over the years.
We have a participant, and everybody works in the office. They've got a family name. It's either aunt so-and-so, brother-in-law, sister. So to him, we may be the paid support, but to him, we are family. And he had his psychologist told him he shouldn't be doing that and we shouldn't allow him to do that. And I'm like, what makes him comfortable? So we finally had to change the psychiatrist on that, that, okay, if that's what he's comfortable with and y'all okay with that, and I guess that's, that's fine. But for a lot of them, they don't have close family. We become their family.
It's true. Miss Jackie? Are you trying to turn on your mic?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. A lot of times we have a lot of intimate responsibilities for folks, and often that builds, very close relationships. What we have to be real mindful of is, what if something happens and my agency closes? What if something happens and that DSP moves to Texas? So working hard to ensure that those relationship circles are diverse. Yeah, some of your best friend might be your 7 to 4 staff, but who else do you have in that friendship circle that's not paid staff? And what we find often is that's where the deficit is. That's where the work needs to be put in, because a lot of folks, we need to work a little harder to help people develop those friendships outside of paid. Keep the paid staff, that's cool too, but outside of paid staff, so that they can broaden their support systems.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in balancing the important to and important for, we've talked about this a little bit about what is important for you, whether that's your diet, your medication, important to you, things that the person wants. Friends, family, recreational activities, things that they have as goals. So balancing it, so it's a really good balance for that individual. Again, I'm hoping to be able to share all of these slides so that y'all will be able to take a closer look. I know we only have about 30 minutes left, so I want to make sure I get to the end. But of course, if you have any questions, you can certainly send them in for any questions. But I'd like for you to take a chance or opportunity to look at those slides and see how it fits into your life and the lives of all of you that you support, the people you support. So, those non-negotiables, important routines and rituals. What are those important routines and rituals? The daily routine, I kind of talked about morning, waking up, what you do in the morning, things you may have, like if you have to have a toast and coffee or a donut, all of those things that are important. If you have to watch a TV show at a particular time, that's something that would fall into that. Any birthdays, anniversaries, deaths, having those conversations so you can make sure you mark that down. If there's any holiday, if somebody's planning to do a vacation, why is this important to us? Why is that important? Because we all need to know what is important to that individual. What do they value as important in their lives? And what happens to you if that goes away? For me, that would be very difficult to lose that routine or my rituals. Like, that's something that would be devastating to me. So just take that into consideration as well for individuals. So non-negotiables, considerations, things we never say, a structured setting and routine. That's not something we should be saying. Positive behavioral support, behavioral management, something we shouldn't be saying. Supervision or diet, medication, activities of daily living, or assistance with those activities of daily living. On the left side, here are some things we might want to say. If you have a preference to take a bath or a shower, do you prefer to do it at night or first thing in the morning? Do you prefer to drink Coke, tea, coffee? What time do you prefer to drink it? Work times and schedules. If you're somebody that likes to sleep in, you probably have a job that if you can choose your schedule, you may choose something a little bit later in the day. The routines, the bedtime routines, if you like to get on the phone, if you like to read a book, if you like to watch a series of shows in the evening, what are those things you like to do? I know I have favorite TV shows that I like to watch. I like to read books. So I try to put in time every couple of days to make sure that that's in place, because if I'm not able to read my Kindle, then that kind of throws me off for the week. If you need quiet time or alone time, a lot of people need that sometimes. If you've been out and about, sometimes you just need a moment to decompress and be by yourself. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because for me, for quiet time is reading a book. I just like to have that time. That doesn't mean there's something wrong, but you also want to make sure that the person's not always having that quiet time unless they say, I just want to be alone for a minute. Not that there's anything else going on. Like the previous slide, is there something going on? Did you mark, is there an anniversary to something? Did something happen around this time? Is that why they're choosing to pull away from everybody at a certain time? Just keep all those things into consideration, and how we celebrate certain things and events. So it's always from the person's perspective. What is important to them? That's why this one is bolded here. And how do we support a person to have the very best day? Just let caregivers know and recognize that all people are different. Every one of us in this room is different. We are not the same. I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's just like the people across the street. No, it's not going to be exactly like the person across the street. They may have a different support system. They may like to sleep in. You might like to not sleep in. Like, there are some differences. Everyone is different. Everybody is their own individual person. So we need to keep that in mind, and also identify what's important to a person. Making sure that those good days are maximized and you minimize the bad days. So, looking at this good day or bad day, how many of you would be a Schedule 1 in your personal life? Or would you be Schedule 2? You could mix it up, because there are things in there that go back and forth, things that I've kind of talked about in when I was on previous slides on building to that. Activities, what you like to do, how you like to do it, when you like to do it, what you like to do with coworkers, when you like to eat dinner. Some people like to eat early, some people like to eat late. So you can use this as an example, but you can, like you said, you can combine and make it that person's what they enjoy doing and how they enjoy doing it for all of those activities to make it a good day versus a bad day. Like, once something happens, if you're waiting on somebody to pick you up and then they've had a flat, then that throws off the day. So then that makes it a bad day. And so how do you figure to work that out? I know for me, then that's going to throw me off. I've got to figure out how to regroup and get back to my good day from starting with the bad day. So just keep that in mind, that some days people have bad days, but you want to make sure those are minimized and you're having more of those good days. Bless you. Communication.
Janae, one of the conversations in regards to that previous slide to have sometimes is what brings out the calm. Mm-hmm. So if you say, what brings out the calm in Jackie, so that might be, a phone call with my grandson every morning. It's sort of the same as the wording, but sometimes we really want to know, okay, I got to figure, I need to know what's going to help to bring out the calm in this person today because they seem a little agitated. Mm-hmm. Might be listening to meditation, might be music, whatever it is. Asking that question is sometimes helpful.
Okay, thank you. And communication, that's extremely important. That's really the heart of everything, is effective communication. Listening and understanding what people are saying to you. And also responding your thoughts in a way so that they can understand you. It's really understanding, did we hear the person and what they were saying, especially if they don't always verbally say it with words. So it's really important, I mentioned, record how people communicate and use that information that is learned. So think about that for anybody with communication. And do you really hear what they're saying, or have you learned how to view those nonverbal cues for communication, because everybody communicates differently. And active listening, I talked about that one a little bit earlier. Making sure that you are balancing open and closed-in questions. Sometimes if you ask somebody something, they're like, do you want to go there? Yes, and that's the end of the conversation, so it's closed. Versus, oh, we're thinking about going here. Do you know what you'd like to do when we get there? Or there are some things you'd like to do? Or there are things you don't want to do when we go there today? So making sure you're communicating and also doing observations to see what's an important component as well. We have some communication plans and logs. As I mentioned earlier, we have person-centered tools. So we have a lot of those documents that support coordinators can use to develop those support plans. So this is just an example of one, and this next slide is some things that have been put in and what could happen and how you could actually answer those. So that's just an example of some of those response and some of this, I do this, what does it mean? So here's just an example that we've included in here. And also just making sure considerations. When somebody smiles, the things that we would never include. You smile, you're happy. You cry, you're sad. That's really not specific. You may want to do, if somebody's repeating and pacing, that means they may want to go to the restroom. But it also means that you've actually started to learn the person and some of those things that they do when they're not feeling well, if they're having the migraines, or you've talked to their supporter or their family and they're like, oh, they have migraines all the time. This is what works for them, so that you can make sure you include those things. And just because somebody may grab your arm, that's why it's very important to have those conversations at the beginning of what's important to the person, to say it's not that it's something that is aggression, they just may be trying to get your attention. So I know that an individual from long ago, when I first moved to Baton Rouge 20-some years ago, this individual liked to come to the door. And he would just stand at the door, and his mom told me, oh, he just wants you to welcome him into the home, and he's going to show you his music and his boom box, as they called it. Once you do that and come through the house, it'll be fine. And so every time I would go to the house, then I already knew that's the thing he was gonna like try to grab my hand to just show me that. But I never took it as any type of aggression. That was just the way he wanted to bring me in to communicate with me and show me what was important to him. So finding the right fit. We've talked about this one. We've talked about some of those characteristics that make for bad matches. Think about the caregivers that you want in your home. That can also help if a family is able to talk to, we have providers in the room, to explain, here are some things that we think would be best to the individual that would support them. I think when I first met families as a support coordinator, I was like, if you're looking for somebody to support your loved one, what are some things or some character traits that you think would work in your home? I'm like, why don't you make a list for me? And that way we can start talking through it as the provider is at the meeting. So bring that information to that quarterly meeting or that initial planning meeting so that we can start talking through that. So then the provider has an idea of what you're looking for. If you want someone that's really into sports, write all of that down. There may be some, it won't be a perfect match, but we'd rather have more than less of those characteristics that would work best with those individuals. And who will support you the best? So what supports and approach works best? This is finding that right support, making sure you're appropriately matching the person, particularly for those that may live alone or don't have much involvement. So this is really a good tool that we have in there as well that helps you to understand how to have those conversations. These tools were set to be guiding conversations to build on what that support plan will use for that tool. Like we really wanted to push that out last year, that the support coordinators were having those PC tools as a guide to develop those support plans. Some of them are finding that very helpful to have those conversations. Sometimes they're difficult conversations, and sometimes It's a lot easier to have all of this at the beginning so that it makes it easier when you're making those developing support plans and working with providers as well. And that's all providers. Some people just don't have in-home. They may be going to a day program or supported employment or something like that. But it's very important that you're able to make sure you're working best with the person to make sure they have the best fit and the best person to support them. So I mentioned this one earlier as well, things that you should never say about trustworthy, kind, reliable, patient, or calm voice. You and I don't want to hear that either. Those are not things that we want. We may want somebody who loves talking and socializing. Some of us may be more introverts, so to be with more extroverts, sometimes that works for us, to bring us out of our shell. But you're not just gonna say, oh, I want them to be reliable. Reliable for what reason? Like, that just doesn't work as things that we should never say. Let's just keep that in mind to never just say that. A kind person, a calm voice. Most of us don't want people yelling at us. So why would we even put that as something on the page? And so, coming up to the end, you will always be needed. There are thousands of people in Louisiana in getting services. It could be people with developmental disabilities, people who are elderly or the aging population, people with physical support needs or limitations. Even if people become more independent, start using more technology and or rely on community resources, many people will always need support from paid staff. How you do your job may change over time, but you will always be needed. Here's some words to leave behind. If you are serious about person-centered, let's rethink. Outing or going into the community, is that anything that any of us would say? No. Move away from integration and focus more on real connections and belonging. Non-compliance. Unless we are talking about failure to comply with treatment in a way a professional would use to describe you or me. Pay attention to those words. That's really important of the conversations we've had today. How we choose the words and how we choose to use them is extremely important for person-centered. Think about the person, but start by today thinking about yourself and how you would want people to talk about you. So that's what I have for today. Are there any questions, comments?
Just one term that I didn't hear today, and I think it's important to emphasize, that is that we work as a team. And I know it's implied, but I think a lot of times we gotta actually say it.
Okay.
That this is not a hierarchy. This is not whether sport coordinator, boom, 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 boom. It works best when we all bring our gifts and talents to figuring this stuff out as a team. So we share information, we talk with each other as a team, and then for the best interest of the person. So
Very
we
good
can
point.
emphasize that.
Very good point. But again, it starts with the person. And whether I'm a support coordinator role, a provider role, we all need to be talking to one another. So that's a very good point about a team approach as well, to make sure you're doing what's best for that person. Any other comments, questions? I want to thank all of you personally for your time and attendance in this session today. Thank you for attending our first annual OCDD Summit. I look forward to seeing you in the future, and thank you so much. We'll try to get all the recordings and all the PowerPoints posted as well. So thank you. Have safe travels back to wherever you're from. Some of you are from out of town, but thank you for joining us today. Thank you.